vaccine.
I don't like getting sick.
The virus will die.
It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine.
To keep safe and strong.
Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
This November, honor the many people who offer their lives for our freedom at the 2022 Heroes Appreciation Breakfast. Organizations, charities, and local residents are invited to celebrate the men and women that ensure our safety and security. Hear from guest speakers, live performances, and presentations from veterans, officers, and more. Save the date, November 8th, 9 to 10:30 a.m. at the new West Bloomfield Middle School. Call 248-451-1900 to register.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
You're listening to your radio homes for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Today's edition of the Megacast begins now. Welcome to the Megacast, our live local daily TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Today we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders just like you. Let's begin with what's making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page. Our top story comes from Kristen Jordan Seamus at the Detroit Free Press. Michigan Michigan could be pummeled with RSV, flu, and COVID-19. Health leaders are warning, as they are calling it, a triple-demic, the threat of 3 viral infections, influenza or the seasonal flu, RSV, and coronavirus pummeling the state possibly all at once. That's the fear of these local health officials. Michigan and national health leaders, according to this article, say that they are concerned. And in a quote from Natasha Bogdasarian, Dr. Natasha Bogdasarian, the chief medical executive of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, she said, quote, "We have not only flu, RSV, and COVID, which have all the attention right now, but we have rhinovirus and parainfluenza and other coronaviruses as well. And closed quote. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention last week, Friday, said it will issue an alert for thousands of healthcare providers nationally about huge spikes in the cases of RSV, along with a rise in flu cases amid an underlying coronavirus pandemic, which, despite what the President of the United States and many others say and how many others are acting, we are still actively in a pandemic, and that is certainly going to be a consideration for our healthcare systems and continues to be something that our healthcare providers all across the state of Michigan and across the U.S. and around the world are urging caution upon. Hospitals are on short staff already and now are struggling with a new viral wave, according to this article. Statewide, pediatric intensive care units have seen their hospital beds now 89% full. That's according to the Michigan Health and Hospital Association, as well as the state health department. Many of those beds are being used to care for children who are sick with RSV, which can cause, among other symptoms, severe illness and rarely death in young children, people who are immunocompromised, and people 65 years of age and older. It's very similar in that regard to COVID-19, which adds that double concern there among those two particular viruses being COVID-19 and RSV, but also is going to be a consideration in regards to COVID-19. Then comes the question of what happens in the winter. Should we expect, as people are indoors more and more closed quarters situations, and certainly given the situation we're in with people using PPE less often, not distancing from one another as much as we saw certainly in 2020, but even a year ago in 2021 at this time, how will that have an impact? Should we expect an uptick in COVID-19 cases, in seasonal flu and RSV in 2022 in the winter? And as of Friday, about 1,200 Michiganders have been hospitalized with confirmed or suspected COVID-19. 43 of those were children. Over the last 2 weeks, in terms of influenza, the percentage of positive tests have more than doubled nationally. That's according to the CDC's data. Although Michigan has yet to see a huge uptick in cases of the flu, hospitalizations are climbing in many other parts of the U.S. in that regard. And finally, in terms of vaccination, COVID-19, we've heard so much about those vaccines, about those booster shots. And every year we hear about getting your flu shot, get that seasonal flu shot, get updated. Last year's flu shot doesn't necessarily protect you all that much from this year's flu, if at all, depending on the mutations of influenza over the past year. And doctors are saying they're disappointed in flu and COVID vaccination rates, according again to this article on our website that will be on our website from Kristen Jordan Seamus at the Detroit Free Press. Michigan still hasn't hit its targets that it had hoped to reach for flu and for COVID vaccinations. The goal was to provide 4 million flu shots to Michiganders in the fall and the winter. As of October 22nd, just recently, the most recent date for which data was available, just 43.4% of the state's residents had received a dose of the flu vaccine. About 10% of the state's population on the COVID-19 side, that's 981,659 people, have taken the newly formulated coronavirus booster shot as of November 1st, according to that data. In a quote from Dr. Arnold Monto at the University of Michigan, the professor emeritus of epidemiology and global public health, who's also acting as the acting chairperson of the U.S. FDA administration's vaccines and related biological products advisory committee. He said, quote, "The problem I see in a national way that there has not been very much uptake of the booster," and closed quote. It's really unfortunate, especially given the fact that the elderly and other groups are still at risk of having a severe infection, and closed quote. Dr. Natasha Bagdasarian, the chief medical executive of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, also said, quote, "It's not that people have completely stopped getting vaccinated, but it's not been as robust as I had hoped it would be," and closed quote. That article will be on our website, civicsonTV.com, on our local news page today. Also making headlines today across the state of Michigan from the Detroit News and Maisha Johnson, about 72,000 people in Michigan as of late on November 6th on Sunday night were still without power after a severe windstorm came through the state on Saturday. About 72,000 residents across the state are without power after winds up to 65 miles per hour were recorded on Saturday afternoon and evening. Consumers Energy says About 65,865 customers were affected by the windstorms as of Sunday night. In a quote from in a statement by Scott McIntosh, the power company's storm officer, he said, quote, "We experienced nearly 2,000 downed wires throughout Consumers Energy's service territory, and this time of year is especially important to watch for down lines that could be hidden under leaves on the ground. We urge everyone who is outside to be on the lookout for downed wires and to stay at least 25 feet away from potentially deadly lines," and close quote. Consumers Energy also said that crews had been making restoration progress overnight and restored power to about 60,000 customers, with more than 200 crews working in the field. On the other side, in our local energy companies, DTE Energy reported about just under 7,000, that being 6,720 customers were without power on Sunday night. In their statement, they said, quote, "While 99% of our customers did not lose power, we are laser focused on restoring the 1% who have experienced an interruption. We expect to have the vast majority of customers impacted restored by the end of the day," and closed quote. Winds still a little bit of a factor outside, certainly not as severe as they were on Saturday. They're expected to die down sometime today, with gusts reaching about 22 miles per hour on average. That, according to the National Weather Service. Gusts will be in the single digits beginning on Tuesday, according to the Weather Service. And other weather news, temperatures will begin to cool a little bit as the winds file through and continue on to have their impact, and then will warm up again as we get later on into the middle of the week, finally falling again at the end of the week. That, according also to the National Weather Service. Finally, making headlines today, some good news, an opportunity to give back to the community. If you're looking for some of those opportunities, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, or DNR, will be holding several volunteer workshops throughout the month of November. They've already started to do this, and state parks, particularly here in southern Michigan, where we originate our broadcast, are hosting volunteer stewardship work days, and volunteers are needed for several different reasons. Among those, but not limited to, restoring natural areas by removing invasive plants that threaten ecosystems, or collecting native wildflowers and some seeds as well. If you're looking for an opportunity to volunteer, you want to get involved, you want to help the Department of Natural Resources with these efforts here in the fall, and as we approach the end of the season, get into the winter, you have a couple more opportunities in our local area. Those coming up 9 a.m. to noon on Saturday, November 12th. That's this coming Saturday at Bald Mountain Recreation Area in Oakland County. Again, 9 to noon on Saturday this week in Oakland County at Bald Mountain Recreation Area. Then you'll have another opportunity next week, Saturday, November 19th at Belle Isle Park, of course, in Wayne County on Belle Isle. All those headlines will be on our website, civiccentertv.com, on our local news page, already there and still there as always, those links to helpful information and updates on COVID-19 directly from resources federally at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, statewide at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and locally where we originate our broadcast in Oakland County from the Oakland County Health Division. We have a great show ahead today on this Monday edition of the Megacast. Coming up next, we'll talk about a local specialty that's coming out very soon, but will only be out for a limited time. Stay tuned. We'll talk about that next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Take a look back in time and recollect local history at this month's Sylvan Story presentation. Learn about Sylvan Lake's illustrious past from the lovely Helen Jane Peters as she discusses everything she can about Whitfield School's teacher and principal, Mr. Glenn Husted, and the letters he'd write to soldiers fighting in World War II. Sylvan Story. Drop by at 6:30 p.m. Thursday, November 10th at the Sylvan Lake Community Center.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick.
The virus will die.
It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine.
To keep safe and strong.
Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Daily TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, We'll find information on all of our partnering stations, including in your local area for TV, for radio, and on the web, and find all of our full shows and individual interviews on demand as well. So you can watch us on your time, anytime, and of course, send all of our episodes to your friends if you enjoy them as well. CivicCenterTV.com/megacast for all of that. As we head into the middle of the fall season, it's a great time to head down to Detroit, to Eastern Market, and in that local area and celebrate the season with our friends at the Detroit City Distillery and Bees in the D, who every year at this time partner for one of their many specialty products, their honey bourbon. Joining us now on the Megacast to talk about that and to tease the release date and how you can get in line first to make sure you get your bottle of this specialty bourbon. It's Garrett Pasiak, who is the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery, as well as Brian Peterson from Bees in the D, their founder, joining us on the Megacast. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad to have you both on. Glad to have both of you back on with us again. We've had you both on several times to talk about your businesses, your organizations, and all the great work that you do all throughout the year. But this is a special time of the year. You know, people love this particular product. They line up for it. They're getting ready for it. They're sitting at their computers the second that it's ready for release, and it sells out quick every year. So let's go back a little while to when this partnership first began between Detroit City Distillery and Bees in the D to create this honey bourbon. And Garrett, let's start with you. How did this partnership from your side of things begin with Brian and his team at Bees in the D?
Well, what we did is a couple years back, we said, you know something, there's a lot of collaboration going on with Bees in the D, with a lot of rooftop beehives and everything like that. And it's fun. We have bourbon, but around the holiday season, you want to go ahead and create something a little bit more special and limited. So that's when we reached out to Bees in the D's, and that's where we met Brian. So
yeah. And by the way, we also have hives right here on the roof over our heads right now at the factory. And that's where it all started. But then we're like, honey and bourbon, what a great mix.
Yeah, it really is a great partnership between two Detroit organizations that are both quite beloved in the city and throughout the Metro Detroit area as well. And that's why you see such a great response from this product. So then, Garrett, from your side of things, we know how we have an idea of how Brian and his team of Bees in the D are able to collect the honey. And of course, that those products are available all throughout the local area from Bees in the D. But how do you then incorporate that into a bourbon, especially once a year, getting ready for this time of the year and its annual release?
So what it is so we have the honey bourbon here. So what we're doing is Brian, Bees in the D, they go ahead and they'll age the honey in a used bourbon barrel. And then once that is extracted and put into this amazing tasting honey here, we then take our original butcher's cut bourbon and we put that into the barrel and age that. So it has a honey finish. So if you're looking for a sweet honey style whiskey, this isn't it. This is a very, very nice, high quality, just honey instant taste at the end of it because it's soaking in a used honey barrel. So that's how we do it.
And so timing, I would imagine
it.
Please go ahead. Sorry about that.
I was going to say, fun things to do with it. You can make we call the honey old fashioned. Literally, just take 2 ounces of that honey bourbon and put that in a glass. You want a couple dashes of that cinnamon bitters. Little Angostura. Then, of course, Brian's famous honey there. Just a little pour of that. Start with a simple syrup. Add ice. Give that a stir. And boom.
Yeah, it's versatile too. So much that you can do. It's a great gift too for the holiday season, and it goes on sale November 11th. Of course, that's just 9 days away. Next week, it will go on just a little over a week from now. It will go on sale November 11th. DetroitCityDistillery.com/shop for more information. DetroitCityDistillery.com/shop to get that product when it comes out on November 11th. Brian, from your side of things, of course, we know from what Garrett had said that the way that they produce this particular product, this bourbon from Detroit City Distillery, is by soaking the bourbon in the honey barrels that you're then collecting. Then you've, of course, collected honey from hives all across the Metro Detroit area, including in the city of Detroit. And as you said, right up there on the roof at Detroit City Distillery. I would imagine this time of the year, things are maybe a little less busy for those bees than in the warmer seasons of the year. So then how do you then focus on collecting enough to create the specialty product and also to fulfill all the products for the remainder of the year when you get toward the colder seasons of the year and those bees decide, all right, we're going to take a break for a little while?
Yeah, I'm in the final stages of winterizing all of our hives, and that's just giving them a little bit of a supplemental feed. Some of our hives, like the ones on the roof here, I'm going to wrap them to keep them a little bit sheltered from that cold wind, and also doing some mite treatments, because unfortunately there's a lot of diseases and parasites that can cause problems. But then, yes, the bees don't hibernate as a lot of people think. They actually form a winter cluster, vibrate, creating heat from friction, and they keep the queen warm all winter long, but live off of their honey stores. But that then gives us, I should say, the beekeeper, a rest. But now we're starting to send out all of our honey to the different organizations like Detroit City Distillery that have invested in us, so that they can now take that sweet goodness and use it for products like this, or in their restaurant, or will bottle it up and have it for sale.
So then over the colder months of the year when the bees are in sort of that hibernation state and aren't working to create more honey that's being produced then as it is over the warmer months of the year, how then does your organization transition from the work being done with the bees to more of an advocacy or educational front during the winter and the early part of the spring?
Exactly. So this is our time to really get the word out of the importance of the bees, to do fun projects like this with Detroit City Distillery and other organizations. It's just a great opportunity for us to continue to get the word out, but we're just not doing some of our in-hive events, because obviously the bees are in the winter months.
Again, more information can be found on the specialty product that will be released on November 11th. DetroitCityDistillery.com for more info, and DetroitCityDistillery.com/shop to get more information as well, and to buy the product on November 11th when it is released. You can also learn more about Bees in the D by going to their website, beesinthed.com, as well, for information on educational info, their events throughout the city and the metro area, and how you can get involved with Bees in the D all throughout the year as well. beesinthed.com. Garrett, for you and your team, as we approach the release date on November 11th, what do you suggest for those that are itching to get some honey bourbon for themselves, certainly for some others that they're looking to gift some this holiday season, to make sure they get in line at the perfect time, because this sells out relatively quick?
It does sell out relatively quick, within a couple hours usually. So this year we are submitting a limited amount in grocery stores. So your local, here in Southeast Michigan, go ahead and check, go ahead and ask, see how many they're getting. But I always suggest it's a fun activity to go ahead and order it online. Now it goes on sale at DetroitCityDistillery.com in the shop link at 8 a.m. I suggest waking up in the morning, getting a cup of coffee, hop on that computer at 7:30, and right when 8 a.m. hits, just keep clicking on that shop link, get it right there, and then come down and join us at 4 p.m. on November 11th. We're having a honey release party. It's great to come down to Eastern Market and experience that pickup full hand of the honey bourbon. We're going to have amazing honey cocktails, just like this one we made here, and it's a great experience. So hop on those computers first thing in the morning, November 11th by 8 a.m.
As Garrett said, 8 a.m. at DetroitCityDistillery.com/shop. And then, as he also mentioned, their release party, 4 p.m. November 11th at Eastern Market, 4 p.m. November 11th at Eastern Market. So mark your calendars as well, especially on that day of, while you're waiting for 8 a.m. to roll around. It's a great time to put that on your calendar, or do it now. Get ready for that release party at 4 p.m. at Eastern Market on November 11th. We're joined by brand ambassador Garrett Pasiak from Detroit City Distillery, as well as the founder of Bees in the D, Brian Peterson, on today's edition of the Megacast. Again, you can shop for honey bourbon this season on November 11th at 8 a.m. for their release, and their other products as well at DetroitCityDistillery.com, and get involved with Bees in the D all throughout the year and learn more about the work that they do, advocating for the bees as well as producing great products right here in the state of Michigan at BeesInTheD.com. Brian, I do want to go back to you, because you mentioned early on in the interview that you have a hive on top of the facility at Detroit City Distillery, as well as many other locations throughout the Metro Detroit area. When did that idea really come into place to put these hives in urban areas as well as other areas in Metro Detroit? And how does that really work out? Are the bees happier? Do they work a little bit harder even in those urban areas? I would imagine it's pretty busy and loud, and that might affect them.
Yeah, so it came about actually right from the beginning of our concept of what we were doing in Detroit City Distillery was one of our first supporters. Bees are referred to as super organisms. Well, I refer to Detroit City Distillery as a super supporter because they have supported us unbelievably with this product, with the bees up on the roof. And actually bees do better in an urban environment because there actually is more diversity of plant life in the vacant lots. Because we do have bees in rural areas and in suburban areas, and our urban bees outperform the bees in our other areas. So it's pretty cool. And what I love about this too is it's Detroit takes care of Detroit. DCD, as we call them, Detroit City Distillery, is taking care of bees in the D, but we're also helping to come up with some great products. And what's even better about this is at that event on the 11th, there's going to be others involved too. We're going to have Time and Honey here with a bourbon charcuterie board. We're going to have a Pingree products available, which is recycled leather. You can get some pretty cool coasters. So it's becoming bigger and bigger with more and more Detroit organizations. And that's what our two organizations are all about. Collaborations and working together in Detroit, taking care of Detroit.
Again, the release of the Detroit City Distillery and Bees in the D honey bourbon specialty product, 8 a.m. on November 11th, DetroitCityDistillery.com/shop. Their release party at Eastern Market, 4 p.m. Same day, November 11th, 4 p.m. at Eastern Market for a whole lot of more fun and interaction with both Bees in the D and Detroit City Distillery. You can follow both of these organizations on social media. Instagram for Detroit City Distillery is at Detroit City Distillery. Twitter at Detroit City DIST. Bees in the D. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook at Bees in the D. Garrett, Brian, thank you both so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate having both of them on to discuss this again. November 11th at 8:30 is when this specialty honey bourbon is released to the public. So make sure you're on Detroit City Distillery's website at that time. You can learn more by searching Detroit City Distillery and by going to beesandthed.com as well. Well, of course, with the fluctuations in the economy we're experiencing right now, it can be a tough time to navigate how to manage your money, to keep paying your bills on time, and of course, to set yourself up well for your financial future. Joining us now to talk about how a relationship with your banking officials and those that you are managing your money with can really help you in that regard is Karma Peters, the president and the CEO of Michigan Legacy Credit Union. Karma, thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, Tyler. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, good to have you back on the program. And it's really important that we build these relationships with these financial institutions that we're managing our money with, even those that we're just, putting money into our checking and into our savings with. They can really help us with so many other resources, especially these credit unions and other banking institutions that tend to have those closer relationships with their customers, being that their customers are so invested in those credit unions. So in the case of your institution, Michigan Legacy Credit Union, what are some of the ways that people can take advantage of building a relationship with your organization while they're, of course, storing and managing their money with you? And how can that be of benefit to their financial future and present?
Well, we really look at the whole relationship with our member owners because we do have this long-lasting relationship. We want to look at when someone's asking for help, how sticky are they in their relationship with us? Do they do most of their business with us, or do they just do one loan? It makes a big difference. When you're starting to maybe experience financial struggles, having that relationship makes all the difference in the things that we can do for you. We have many options out there, but part of that is possibly skipping a payment. It's that time of year where people like to skip a payment as the holidays come so they can use that money towards their holiday spending budget. But we can also match rates. People ask us all the time to match rates. with someone else to keep their business here. And we appreciate that opportunity. And we do that as often as we possibly can. But having all your business here lets us look at other opportunities too, to maybe help you lower some rates, such as moving some unsecured rate into a secured loan with a lower rate. So just having that whole picture gives us more opportunity to help our members.
We're joined by Karma Peters, the president and the CEO of Michigan Legacy Credit Union. On today's edition of the Megacast, you can find more information by going to their website at michiganlegacycu.org, michiganlegacycu.org. And among some of those different services that you provide, can go through some of those details and in terms of what some of these services that you provide can do to help different people that are through your financial institution or that even other credit unions and those sorts of financial institutions can do to help people manage their money, move the money in correct positions, but also to battle some of the current things that we're battling in the economy, whether it be inflation or rising interest rates to sort of match and try to counteract that inflation. There's a lot to balance right now that you really need to have that back and forth with your financial institution in order to make sure you're navigating it properly.
Most definitely. One of the biggest things to do is to check the rates on all of your loans or credit cards. Many department stores start at 28%. As a federal credit union that's federally insured, our interest rate can only go to 18%. And in many cases, it's lower than that, depending on the member's credit score. So look at those department store cards and see if we can transfer those to maybe a signature loan or even a secured loan with a lower rate. A lot of people do not realize as well that you can borrow against your own money. So you can use a savings or a certificate and borrow against that. If you don't have any plans on using it, you'll get a much lower rate than just a standard personal loan or signature loan or a regular credit card. So those are definitely things to check out. But on credit cards also, check out those annual fees. A lot of times, if you're a rewards person, but you're not using the rewards, you can pay a higher annual fee. Our credit cards and many other credit unions offer a no annual fee credit card for the purposes of helping save members money so they're not spending money on fees that they don't necessarily need or will use that will benefit them.
Again, more information on how you can get in contact with Karma and the team at Michigan Legacy Credit Union can be found on their website, michiganlegacycu.org. And Karma, in terms of building that relationship, so I would imagine the fear for many people going through their banking institution and having these sort of negotiations is you're going to get a cookie cutter response because they're dealing with so many different people and they're dealing with so many different financial situations that you're going to get just sort of one or the other, a one size fits all solution, and maybe be talking to someone that doesn't really know you, doesn't really know you, where you're at and what you need. How is that different at your institution and at credit unions versus a larger banking institution?
Because we are Michigan based and locally owned, we make our decisions right here. We get to treat each member and look at the whole picture rather than just an automated decision model. That's one of the nicest features. We have many members that we've been able to help in unconventional ways just by thinking outside the box. And that's part of that local decision making right here in Metro Detroit. So I would encourage everyone to check that out. Check out Michigan Legacy or check out your local credit union. Many of us, especially smaller financial institutions, have that ability. And we get to know our member owners. So we have different options. I think one of the things that came out of the pandemic is even our collections department became friends with people that were experiencing hardships during the pandemic. And that seems to have carried through. The sooner you talk to someone, the more options that are available. So don't put off those conversations. Have them right away so that you have as many options as possible open to you if you are experiencing or think you're going to experience financial difficulties.
Yeah, and people can't really control Karma when they're going to need a loan necessarily. In some cases they can. They can decide that I'm going to stay in my home or my apartment a little bit longer before I look to, go somewhere else or buy another home or, downsize or whatever the case may be. But in some cases, they do need to make those decisions quickly for their financial future, especially given the state of our economy. So when that comes around and you have a situation like we're in right now with interest rates continuing to rise as the Federal Reserve tries to counteract the impact of inflation on the economy, how can that relationship with your credit union, with your credit institute, with your financial institution right now help you now also get into a better situation that you need to be into, maybe get a new home loan, or you got to get a different car and you need to get a new loan there, but the interest rates are going to be high. How can you best establish that relationship now so that when the economy does correct itself and those interest rates eventually do hopefully come back down, that you can also recover on the backside of this and really be in an even better position financially with whatever loans you may be getting?
That really comes to play in having that deep relationship. So it is important. We look at, are they saving money? Even if it's $5 a week and you show that consistent payment pattern every time you get paid, you don't have to save a lot of money, but save a little and put that away as your emergency fund. Those are things that we do look at. There's many other options that we look at too. One of the things that's becoming more popular now with rates going up is variable rates. People have been afraid of those in the past. The fixed rates have been so low. Now may be a great time to look at that variable rate. And as rates come back down, then you can refinance it into a fixed rate. So that's one of the options that's available now to you.
Again, more information can be found on getting in contact with Michigan Legacy Credit Union, as well as all their resources on their website, MichiganLegacyCU.org. MichiganLegacyCU.org, and many of our other financial institutions locally, banks and credit unions alike, have very similar services too. So no, even if Michigan Legacy Credit Union isn't your financial institution of choice, check the website of your financial institution for many of these resources as well. We're joined by Karma Peters on today's edition of the Megacast. She is the president and CEO of Michigan Legacy Credit Union, as we're in really interesting financial times because of the state of the market, because of the state of the economy and the uncertainty for when it's going to go back to normal, if it's going to go back to normal, how many different ebbs and flows it's going to take before the economy eventually does what it always does and self-corrects and brings itself to more of a plateau. And so when there are those opportunities for savings, or at least let's reframe it to, what are some of those opportunities for savings right now that people can take by going through their financial institutions? One that I know is suggested pretty often is opportunities through CDs. Now, when I think of CDs, I think of the late 90s to early 2000s listening to music, but financially they can be really helpful and they have nothing to do with your favorite tunes.
They can. Right now we're running a special. So we have 3.5% for 6 months. So it's a great way to stash away a little bit of money and take advantage of the rates going up before they go down. We also have some longer terms, but we're offering that special right now just to attract some savings and get people to really push into saving that money and earning some good interest while the rates are available.
Again, more information to get in contact with Michigan Legacy Credit Union can be found on their website, MichiganLegacyCU.org, MichiganLegacyCU.org, for more information, as well as how you can get in contact with them through social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and more. You can also give them a call as well by looking at their website and finding their number there. Call them at 800-552-8643 or text them 248-409-3150. Karma, anything else that we should be keeping in mind right now in terms of how we can utilize those relationships with our financial institutions to put some more money in our pockets, some more savings in our accounts as we continue to navigate really uncertain waters here economically?
Well, a lot of people know that the mortgage industry has slowed down, but home equities can be a great way to utilize that equity that you have in your home right now, especially if you're not planning on moving. You can capture and use that equity to do some of those projects that you didn't get finished without refinancing at the higher rate and paying those refinancing costs. So that's another way to look at that equity that you have and put it to good use. finishing those things that you need or putting some things in order, it's a great way to do that right now.
Once again, more information can be found from Michigan Legacy Credit Union on their website, michiganlegacycu.org. Karma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Have a great day.
You as well. You can get in contact with Michigan Legacy Credit Union, of course, on their website, michiganlegacycu.org, or by calling them 800-552-8643, 800-552-8643, or text them 248-409-3150, 248-409-3150 to text them. We'll take another break here on the Megacast. On the other side, tomorrow is Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th. It's your chance to go to the polls if you haven't already voted by absentee ballot, or even if you're preparing to fill out your absentee ballot and return it in person to those ballot drop boxes before the deadline on Election Day. It's important that before you go to the polls, before you put pen to paper and finalize your ballots, you know what you're doing. You know where you're looking for information so you can be an informed voter. And also, we'll take a look coming up at some of the processes, the inside processes, and discuss that with Oakland County Clerk Lisa Brown. That's coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
I'm feeling good.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
This November, honor the many people who offer their lives for our freedom at the 2022 Heroes Appreciation Breakfast. Organizations, charities, and local residents are invited to celebrate the men and women that ensure our safety and security. Hear from guest speakers, live performances, and presentations from veterans, officers, and more. Save the date, November 8th, 9 to 10:30 a.m. at the new West Bloomfield Middle School. Call 248-451-1900 to register.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live local daily TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across the Great Lakes state, including My Michigan TV, and find all of our full episodes and each individual interview segment on demand as well. All of that is on civiccentertv.com/megacast. And while today, Monday, November 7th, is the date, we are shortly approaching Election Day. We are now at the end of the election cycle. Those political ads you're seeing all over the place on TV, listening on the radio, seeing in ads on different places online are going to be coming to an end tomorrow. But first, you've got to do your civic duty in order to make sure that we get to the finish line during this election cycle. Whether you're on one side of the aisle, on the other side of the aisle, or straight down the line in the middle, between Democrat and Republican. It's important that you have your voice heard. And the best way to do that is to make sure that before you go to the polls, you know, A, what you're voting for, B, who you're voting for, and have a stance on the important issues of the day, of which really have an overarching impact on these elections each and every cycle. And so often what we see is during these midterm elections, whether it be, you know, primary elections before a gubernatorial election on those off years, or it be presidential elections and the primaries, we see that the turnout sort of go away. People are very enthusiastic to go out and vote for the president of the United States and maybe ignore some of the down ballot initiatives and down ballot candidates too. And certainly we see a lot less enthusiasm statistically during the midterm elections, and especially during the primaries that lead up to those midterm elections. But every time we have an election cycle, we hear the same fodder from those on the right, those on the left, those in the media, and those canvassing out in the community, and those activists as well, that this is the most important election of our lifetime. And there's a reason for that cliche. It's because every single election cycle, the circumstances change. The last 2 years, the last 4 years, the last 10 years, last 20 years, they all compound and have an impact on where we are today, and even more so an impact on where we go tomorrow. And that all comes down to your voice and your vote here in the state of Michigan and all throughout the US. So what do you do before you go to the polls? You either know who you're going to be voting for before you go there, or you're filling it out as you go at the ballot. And there's benefits and drawbacks to both. Certainly more benefits to the latter, to the former, than to the latter. You want to go to the polls knowing who you're voting for and what you're voting for, because depending on one candidate to another, their policies on certain issues, whether this election cycle it be election integrity and election security, or and certainly the abortion issue nationally and definitely here in the state of Michigan, is also a critical issue this election cycle. Reproductive health, a critical issue this election cycle as well. And then locally in certain areas across Michigan, we think about Oakland County. Local transit is definitely a major issue with the smart bus millage renewal up in Oakland County. Certainly also some millages up for renewal or up for implementation in our local school districts, which have impacts on buildings, on facilities, and on education as well. You want to make sure you know what you're voting yes or no on before you go to the polls. And a great place to start on that regard is to go to the candidates' websites themselves. So last week with Dave Dulio from Oakland University, we talked about a really interesting wrinkle that's come in the last couple weeks or so in the polls, where we're seeing a dead heat almost between incumbent Attorney General Dana Nessel and her Republican challenger Matthew DePerno, with that race at the time I spoke to Mr. Dulio being a 1% difference, not including the margin of error, in favor of Dana Nessel, 44% in her favor, 43% in favor of her GOP challenger, Mr. DePerno, according to a poll by the Detroit News and Local 4 TV, or WDIV television in Detroit. So if you're on the fence, which a lot of people are between many of our candidates in many of our positions, a great place to start is to go to their website. So in the case of the Attorney General's race, for example, Matthew DePerno's website is DePerno for MI, DePerno for MI. And if you go to that website, you can learn more about the candidate. You can learn more about their priorities and their stances on the issues. And in some cases, and I can't say that's the case for every single candidate, they'll have even more information on specific policies, excuse me, that they're looking to enact on one issue versus another. So for example, on DePerno's website, among his critical issues or his core issues this election, restoring law and order, upholding the Constitution and civil liberties, ending COVID mandates, outlawing critical race theory, fighting for free, fair, and secure elections. And whether you agree that he actually is fighting for any of those or not, you can get those details and go into more information about why he has his stance one way or another on those issues. And the same thing goes for the incumbent Democrat Attorney General Dana Nessel at her website, dananessel.com. You click on her initiatives tab, and there you can find even more information on critical issues to her: protecting consumers, defending our civil rights, safeguard senior citizens, protect our environment, guard our health care, and whether or not you believe that she is correct on any of these issues, that her stance is what you believe in. It's important to know who you're voting for, because many people say, well, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm an independent. They go into these elections, they have certain views on certain parties and on certain candidates, and that's what guides them at the polls. And when you end up having a vote be cast for someone that you're not sure about, you end up with the consequences of whatever they believe in, whether they're representing your political alignment or not. So important to go to those websites and explain and explore more. Another great place to look is through nonpartisan resources, such as the League of Women Voters of Michigan and League of Women Voters Oakland area, many of whom do interviews with these candidates. They dive in a little bit deeper with the candidates on certain issues, so you can learn more about where exactly they stand, what they particularly plan to do or plan to try to do regarding one issue versus another, and also provide a nice comparison between one candidate and another. We've participated here at our flagship Civic Center TV in candidate forums for many positions throughout Oakland County, including the West Bloomfield School District Board of Education, both the Sylvan Lake and the Kegle Harbor City Council positions, and even earlier on in the election cycle in the primaries for one of the Michigan legislative positions as well. And these are really great ways to get to know the candidates, get to know their attitude, get to know their demeanor, but also, even more importantly, are all really equally as important, to know their stance on many of these issues as well. A great place to go is the League of Women Voters of Michigan's website. That's lwvmi.org, lwvmi.org. You can find their voter guides. You can find more information on how you can get involved in some of these different issues, and learn more about your candidates as well. And if you're not sure if you're registered to vote, or where you're supposed to be voting based on your registration, where you live, you can also find resources on their website for that as well. They also offer something called Vote 411 at vote411.org. This allows you to do a lot of great things. You can look into certain issues, look into certain candidates, do a lot of the same things you're doing at their website, or through candidate forums, or through interviews through the League of Women Voters, or through other publications, whether they be partisan or nonpartisan, and then actually go through by putting in some basic information, your precinct, your zip code, whatever the case may be, get a sample ballot, explore some of the candidates, and maybe even fill out a sample ballot right then and there that you can take with you to the polls, so you know exactly who you're voting for, not to do that all by memory. And I just know on this issue, especially those down ballot initiatives and those down ballot candidacies, you're going to want to make sure that you know exactly who you're voting for, because so often those are the ones that get pushed to the wayside, and those are the ones that get forgotten. Lastly, michigan.gov, mi.gov/vote. That will forward you to the Michigan Secretary of State's office's Michigan Voter Information Center, where you can find all that information too. Am I registered to vote? Where am I registered to vote? What is my precinct? And including what is on my ballot. You can download a sample ballot and view it right there. I did it this morning for my local precinct, so I know exactly what's on my ballot. I know what I got to do last minute to get prepared to vote in my local school district for where I live versus where I work. And I know a lot about that school district. I don't know as much about the school district in my local area where I live, so I'll do more digging on that, learn more about the school board candidates, learn more about their millage proposals as well, and learn a lot of information so I know what I'm voting for before I go to the polls on Tuesday and cast my vote. It's important that we know this information. It's important as voters. Your civic duty isn't just going to your local precinct and casting a vote. It's not just applying for and receiving your absentee ballot and returning it by mail, or now that we're so close to the election, it's highly suggested by local clerks, county clerks, and really across the board that you drop it off at many of these ballot drop boxes that municipalities have been running since the 2020 election for the very purposes of avoiding mishaps with the mail. It's important that when you're casting that vote, you go beyond circling in that bubble on each each issue or on each position, but that you know what you're voting for, you know who you're voting for, and that is what it means to be doing your civic duty. It's one thing to have your voice heard. It's another thing for your voice to mean something and to have some substance behind it, because the more educated of a society that we are, the better we know our candidates, the better we understand our issues, the better chance we put ourselves in a position to solve some of these problems. initiatives to to reduce some of the divisiveness. You might know a candidate that perfectly aligns with your politics, but doesn't align with your morals, doesn't align with the way you want a leader to be leading. That could be a difference maker. I'm not saying it is with any certain candidates or other candidates or not. I'm not going to make any political determinations on this show or push any of my political beliefs on you. That's not what this program's for. And frankly, I haven't put forth the proper amount of research to give you informed opinions on that in this particular segment right now about one candidate versus the other in a timely manner to do that in the way that's proper. And I'm not going to. I'm simply giving you an explanation of what you should be doing, what you should be thinking about doing before you go to the polls and cast your vote so that we can have an informed electorate and collectively make informed decisions at the polls on Tuesday. Important to know all this information. Again, mi.gov/vote will take you directly to the Michigan Voter Information Center online. And there's plenty of FAQs right there about voting at your local clerk's office, about voting absentee, about registering to vote. Am I registered? Where your polling place is, what the hours are. And just to go back to the absentee ballots, because of a 2018 voting initiative that was voted positively, a yes vote by the electorate, there is no reason absentee voting here in the state of Michigan. So many people have already taken advantage of that no reason absentee voting to vote in past elections in 2020, in the primaries for 2022, in special elections locally and county-wide. But as we get closer to election day, it is urged by local clerks that you return those ballots either directly to your clerk's office or to their ballot drop boxes, because look, it's great of a mail system as we do have, and this is not a knock against the U.S. Postal Service or other couriers in Michigan and our local area or across the board. There are delays in mail. There are processes that take time, and if your ballot does not get to your local clerk's office by the deadline on election day, it's not going to count. You can cast your vote, but you want to make sure your vote counts. And that's why they're urging you, drop these ballots off in the ballot drop boxes, drop them straight off to your clerk's office, because at this point in time, you are running the risk, if you're putting that absentee ballot in the mail, that it may not arrive at your local clerk's office in time. These are all important things to know. Now, we're running out of time. We were going to run a segment that we previously had recorded on a live show with Oakland County Clerk Lisa Brown about some of the processes that go into counting the votes, tallying the votes, and certifying the elections on a local and a state level. When you get the results on Tuesday night, those results are unofficial. And the reason they're unofficial is because the powers that be, the systems that are in place to make sure that our elections are accurate and are secure, have not gone through the full canvassing process of certifying those votes. So we get the unofficial results usually on election night. This time around, we're expecting some delays. It could be upwards of 24 hours in some places in Michigan after the deadline on election day before we know who won certain positions or which proposals have been voted affirmatively or negatively. So keep that in mind. But again, those results are unofficial because it has to be the election results have to be overlooked by the Board of Canvassers locally and statewide and certified. That's when they become official. Now, generally speaking, the unofficial results have more times than not been what the official results eventually have been. So as much as there's been speculation, particularly in the wake of the 2020 election, on there being discrepancies between the results we get on or shortly after election night and what the official results are, history has shown that's not to be the case. The point here, the fact of the matter is, you have a chance to make a difference in your community, locally, statewide, and across the board. And what we do here in the U.S. tends to have a big impact worldwide. So, as I like to say to my friends and my family, make sure you vote in this election. Otherwise, it's your fault. That'll do it for this Monday edition of the program. Again, tomorrow is election day. We have some special programming here to celebrate our veterans on Tuesday morning. So we will not have a Megacast program live on Tuesday, but I highly encourage you to tune in for the Heroes Appreciation Breakfast. And of course, we'll return with a new Megacast on Wednesday.